Okay, welcome back, you guys. We're going to start our afternoon with meditation. So typically we're doing chanting on the way in. I'm guiding you on breathing mindfulness meditation. I'm then guiding you in loving kindness meditation. We go back to breathing mindfulness, and then we come out with the chanting. That's what we're doing in the morning. But in the afternoons, we're going to do breathing mindfulness meditation, like you learn in the foundation course. You guys were in the foundation course. So there's breathing mindfulness meditation where we don't do the affirmations. So that's what I'm going to guide you guys in this afternoon. So we'll just do the chanting. I'll be some guidance, and then I'll just be quiet, and then we'll come out with some chanting. So we'll do probably like a 15-20 minute meditation. Okay, so if you guys like to make yourself comfortable, for those of you guys online, you're welcome to join along as well. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Bhutang Bhagavanang Apivateyami Savakato Bhagavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rogavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusarang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, in the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเขวาโหตังมหาเขวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวัตตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวัตโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Okay, this afternoon's topic is practicing non-attachment, how to eliminate attachment to those who are closest to us. It's important to understand that love is not attachment, and attachment isn't love, because oftentimes we misunderstand these, as we were talking about this morning with love is not without attachment. You can actually love people, and you actually love people more when you don't have attachment. When you have attachment, you're actually basing your inner feelings on whether this person is with you or not. If they're with you, oh, you feel great, you feel wonderful, you're in a relationship with this person. But when you're not with that person, oh, you feel miserable. That's what the attachment is producing. It's not the love that's doing that. And what your attachments will tend to do is you'll tend to put expectations on people. You'll try to control people and try to force them to do things your way. And this is just going to stand in your way of being harmonious in your relationships. So this can happen with your parents. You might be trying to put expectations on them, or they might be trying to put expectations on you. It can be happening with siblings or life partner, children. And as long as you're putting expectations on people, they're going to feel uncomfortable, and they're going to feel smothered, and they're going to feel pressured and not feel comfortable in this relationship. And you're going to experience discontentedness because they're not going to be able to do things your way all the time. So when you get rid of your attachment out of your relationships, out of your mind, that you have an attachment to this person, you'll actually be able to reside more harmonious in the relationship, and there'll be less discontentedness, and everybody will feel more comfortable. So the attachments to eliminate, the way that you do this is you do it through the Eightfold Path, like we talked about on Monday. You need to practice the Eightfold Path. That's the core central teaching. So you need to get that well underway. But as you get that well underway, even with the Eightfold Path, there's attachment to people who are closest to you that is really hard to eliminate. It's really challenging because, especially if you've been living with these people, like if it's your life partner or children, or if it's your parents, it's oftentimes very challenging to eliminate these attachments. So like if your parents died, you might be sad or frustrated or feeling sorrowful or grieving. This isn't the love that's causing that. That's the attachment, craving the permanence. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you how to eliminate attachment to the people who are closest to you. That's your parents, your siblings, your life partner, your children, people like this. So once you have the Eightfold Path well underway, now we can start talking about these other things that you can be doing in order to eliminate attachment. The first one is you need to acquire wisdom about the path to enlightenment, because there's various teachings throughout the teachings of the Buddha that you need to be able to cultivate wisdom about in order to be able to practice the teachings in your day-to-day life. And as you guys have heard me share, practicing to cultivate wisdom is to not believe in the teachings. Don't ever believe anything that you hear me say. Don't ever believe anything in these books. Don't believe anything that anybody else says. You need to be able to examine and investigate the teachings. You need to reflect on them to independently verify whether they're true or false. And then you need to practice the teachings. By practicing the teachings in your day-to-day life, that's where you'll see the transformation of your mind, and that's where you'll see that the wisdom of the teachings is fully cultivated. So you're going to need to develop this life practice on the path to enlightenment through acquiring wisdom, through not believing anything. Then you're going to need to know true love. That's why I taught that this morning, because that's kind of like a prerequisite to be able to eliminate attachment to people, because people oftentimes thinks that their attachment is their love, and they're not willing to let that go. So you need to be willing to let go of your attachment to people, practicing true love in order to be able to get to the point where you're actually practicing true love. So by understanding what true love is, this is going to help you to get to the point where you're not having attachment in your relationships. So true love is unconditional love, where you love people as they are, without putting expectations on them, without trying to control them or force them to do anything specific. Love is not attachment, and missing a person is not love. Grief is not from the love. That's all from attachment, the mind's craving, desire, attaching. In order to get to the point where you're not attached to people, you're going to need to practice freedom of decisions, realizing that each individual being, in order to feel comfortable, and you need to get to a point where there's no attachment in the relationship, everybody needs to be able to be free to make their own decisions. When we start putting our expectations on people, then people feel pressured and forced in the relationship, and they're not going to be having freedom of decisions. We all have our own free will in our life, but when someone's pressuring you to make decisions a certain way, this is going to make it challenging for you to have your relationships. I typically give examples from my life in order to be able to help you guys. So I can give you guys an example of something that just happened today at lunchtime, that I was talking to you about my son doing this new school. He started this new school where he's now learning online. He's doing online, and I can monitor online what he's actually doing to see that he's doing his schoolwork. And I didn't think he was actually going to be doing his schoolwork today because it was his first day, but he surprised me. He actually did his schoolwork. So I got online and I checked it, and I was like, oh, he's doing his schoolwork. Wow, this is great. But there was 3 classes that he hadn't quite done what he needed to do. So we talked, and I talked with them, and I said, hey, it looks like you still have some things to do. He was like, oh, no, I'm done everything. I finished everything that I was supposed to do. On my side of the system, it says that I've done everything. And I said, oh, on my side, it's showing that you still have a couple of things to do. I said, can you take a look at that and see if there's something that you could do extra, because it's showing on my system you still need a couple more things. I'm going to send it to you, and then would you mind taking a look at it in order to see if you can see where the issue is? Right? Instead of forcing and controlling him, I just said, would you mind taking a look at this? Instead of like, no, you didn't do your homework. You didn't do the way you're supposed to do it. Right? This would be trying to control and force someone. Instead, it's just like, hey, can you take a look at this? Because there's lots of impermanence in the world. This is a brand new system to us. Maybe it's showing, like he said, on his side, it's showing he's got everything done. On my side, it's showing that he's still got a couple of things left there's some impermanence somewhere. Either the system's not working, or he's not seeing something, or I'm not seeing something on my side. So we need to sort this out. Whereas if we go in and we try to pressure each other to do things a certain way and try to force each other, this is not going to produce harmony in our relationships. So you need to feel comfortable for people to make decisions. And then when I got off the phone, my thought was that he was going to do this right away when I got off the phone, because that's what I would have done if I was him. I would have just handled it right away. But I looked at it like 20, 30 minutes after we had talked, and he still hasn't done anything. So he's probably at home playing some video games instead of doing this. Hey, that's his choice. At some point today, he's going to need to look at this. And if he doesn't, by the time we get home, we'll just talk about it, right? So this is a freedom of his decisions. He can make decisions his own way. He's aware that he needs to look at this, and now he's going to do it at some point based on his decisions, right? So when we start trying to control people and force people and expect people to do it our way, we'll be frustrated and agitated. So when I noticed that over 20, 30 minutes, he still hadn't done it, I was like, all right, well, this is his choice. He has chosen not to do it yet, but at some point he will, and that's his choice. So we need to be in relationships. We're not forcing our approach on somebody else and how we would choose to do things. It's helpful to ask and invite rather than pressure and force people. It's better that you just ask people. And I gave you guys that example with the movies with my wife. I can ask her now. I can say, hey, would you like to go to the movies? Right? And then she might say, oh, I'm not interested. Right? So I'm asking and inviting her rather than forcing her. Where before I might have said, do you want to go to the movies? Right? It's really me wanting her to go to the movies. Now I might just ask and invite rather than pressuring and forcing for someone to make a decision my way. As you're in relationships, people around you are going to struggle. And when you see them struggling, if you have an attachment to them, you might want to step in and fix that situation for them right away. And if you do this, this is actually going to allow the struggle to continue. So with my son, if he was having some kind of struggle with this new school, if I just step in and start making a bunch of decisions and fix it for him, he never gets the opportunity to cultivate the wisdom to overcome that struggle himself. So he can only overcome that if I'm there to do it for him. So you're going to need to allow the struggle, because the struggle is where you cultivate wisdom. Each individual person, as they're struggling through a certain challenge, it's just because they lack wisdom. There's certain wisdom that they lack, and that's why they're struggling. But if they have wisdom, they won't struggle anymore. So if you jump in there and make a bunch of decisions for people, you're inhibiting them from being able to cultivate the wisdom. So that means when you're not there any longer, that means that they're going to continue to struggle. So in order to eliminate your attachment to people, you're going to need to feel comfortable with people sometimes struggling around you. You can offer them advice. You can suggest things to them. You can ask if they need your help. But ultimately, sometimes they're going to say, no, I'm not interested in your help. And you're just going to need to step back and understand that that's what they're going to need to do in order to cultivate the wisdom. Because if them struggling causes you painful feelings, you might think the way to solve your painful feelings is to run in there and fix a bunch of things for them. But that's not going to solve your painful feelings. The reason why you're having painful feelings is because your mind is attached to them. You're craving for them to not struggle. And they're going to need to struggle sometimes. So you're going to need to step back and allow that struggle to occur. Understand that everybody is their own individual being. For example, like in a married couple, sometimes we're taught that we're now one person. If you're a boyfriend or girlfriend or you're married, we're now one person and we're supposed to agree on every decision. This isn't actually true. Everybody is their own individual being, and we're all going to come to different conclusions about certain decisions, and you're not all always going to agree. So it's important to understand that we are all individual beings, and agreement does not equal love, and disagreement does not equal hate, division, or respect. Just because you disagree with someone doesn't mean you hate them or that you disrespect them. It just means that you have a different opinion, right? If you have this idea that everybody's supposed to agree and you're trying to force agreement, when your life partner or your parents disagree, You might try to be fighting and arguing in order to get them to agree with you, where you can just understand it's okay if they disagree. Me and my wife, in the past, we used to have disagreements, and we would fight until death to try to get each other to agree with us. Where now we understand disagreement is normal because she's had certain life experiences. I've had certain life experiences. We're going to have different opinions about how to handle any one particular issue. But now we don't fight in order to try to see who's right and who's wrong. We just talk. What's your idea? Oh, I listen to her ideas. She listens to my ideas. Sometimes at the end of the conversation, she agrees with me. Sometimes I agree with her. Sometimes at the end of the conversation, we still disagree. But we walk away understanding like, okay, she's going to do it her way and I'm going to do it my way. And that's okay, right? So if we don't realize that everybody is their own individual being and they're free to make their own decisions, and we don't have to fight in order to get people to agree with us, we can just step away and say, okay, they disagree, and that's okay. So you can have discussions versus forced agreement. When you're in a situation where you're trying to force the other person to agree with you, this is because of your craving, desire, attachment. Just have discussions. Share with them your opinions and views, and let them decide at the end of the conversation whether they would like to agree with you and maybe do it your way or not. And if they're not interested, that's okay, right? That doesn't mean they're disrespecting you. It just means they have a different opinion and they're going to do it a different way. And at the end of the day, if your way is better and their way doesn't work, hey, they can see that. There were times where my mom would come to me and she would say, hey, David, I need your advice. And I would say, okay, what do you need? She would tell me the problem. She'd tell me the issue. I would share it with her, spend 45 minutes or an hour talking with her. And she would say, you know, David, this is really good advice, but I would like to let you know that I'm not going to do it that way. And I would say, okay, Mom, that's fine. You know, do whatever you need to do. And she's like, okay. So she would go off and she would do things her way. She'd come back 6 months later. David, it happened again. I was like, what? She's like, I didn't follow your advice and everything blew up just like you said. It didn't work out. And I was like, no worries, Mom. You know, you're still learning. You're doing whatever you think is best. She's like, yeah, I should have just listened to you. I should have known this by now, but I didn't. I did it my way and it didn't work out. I was like, no worries, Mom, right? So you need to allow that struggle and you need to have discussions instead of trying to force agreement. So when my mom told me that she wasn't going to do it my way, I said, okay, it's up to you. My sharing with her for 45 minutes or an hour, that was my generosity, that I was willing to share my time, effort, energy, and resources without any expectation of anything in return. I didn't even expect her to do what I suggested, right? So if I had an expectation that she would do things my way, then, and that's the only way that I will share advice with her, then I'm not going to be practicing generosity and people aren't going to always do things your way. So if you're going to share your advice and suggestions with people, you need to do it without any expectation, even the expectation that they will do it your way, right? So that way you don't get off the phone or get off out of the conversation and feel like you have to force this person to do it your way. Or if they didn't do it your way, that they somehow did something wrong. Right? My mom decided to do it her way and she struggled and had difficulties because of it, but that was her choice, right? So you're going to sometimes have situations where you guys are discussing things and that's much better than having forced agreement. It's helpful to spend time alone. Sometimes when we're in relationships, we try to spend so much time with each other. It's good to spend time alone and get comfortable with spending time alone. Even when you go on vacation together and you go out on holiday together, it's good to spend time alone. My family took a vacation in 2023, me, my wife, and my son. And there were different periods of time where my wife went off and did things by herself, right? And me and my son went off and did things by ourselves. Sometimes when we go away, we feel like we have to be with each other all the time. Where when you go away from each other, you're comfortable going away. Even you're in a place that you don't live and none of you guys know where you're at necessarily, you can feel completely comfortable going off and doing separate things. This is to help you practice non-attachment, where when you're attached, you're going to feel like you have to stay with each other the whole time. So maybe you're in a foreign city that neither of you guys have been to before. Feel comfortable to go off and do things by yourself. That's practicing non-attachment. So spending time alone, doing things like shopping, having dinners, vacations, being comfortable with silence when you are with this person. Sometimes when you're with people, you feel like you have to always be talking. It's okay to just be quiet. right? You're riding in a car together. It's okay to just be quiet. You don't have to be talking the whole time. So there's certain attachments that your mind has where you might feel like you have to be with someone all the time or talking all the time. And this isn't the case. When you are communicating with someone like a partner or a family member, it's important to communicate with a purpose. Sometimes when we have attachment, say someone goes on a business trip and you call each other, it's like, honey, what are you doing? Oh, I miss you so much. Or what are you doing now? I want you to do this. Where are you? What are you doing? There's no purpose here. It's just the mind's longing, yearning, and trying to find out what's going on with this person. Whereas all of this stuff doesn't have any purpose behind it. So you would like to communicate with purpose. And all of this, what are you doing now? I miss you. I want you to come back home. I miss you. Why are you gone for so long? There's no purpose here. This is just you expressing your attachment. Continuing to do breathing mindfulness meditation and practicing generosity is what will train your mind to let go. Those are the two practices that the Buddha taught to train your mind to let go. So like that meditation we just did, the goal isn't to eliminate your thoughts. The goal is to train your mind to let go. So when your mind moves off the breath and you had to let go and come back to the breath, that's training your mind to let go, let go, let go. So in these relationships, you might be having trouble to let go. And that's what this breathing mindfulness meditation is going to do, as well as the generosity, where you're giving and sharing without any expectation of anything in return. You're training your mind to let go, because you'll tend to be somewhat selfish when you have craving, desire, attachment. You won't be willing to share with other people. So if you can practice generosity frequently throughout your day, whether it's time, effort, energy, or resources sharing with other people, it's going to help your mind to learn how to let go. If you walk together in life and you walk in these teachings where possible, like say if an entire household can be practicing these teachings, it's going to be better. Because if you're practicing non-attachment and the other people in your home are not, this can be really challenging. But you can't be in a situation all the time where people in your home are practicing these teachings. There's going to be some situations where people just aren't interested, and you're maybe living with roommates or you're living with other family members. So that's what we were talking about earlier before lunch. But if you have the opportunity to encourage people without forcing them, but just encouraging and supporting them to be able to practice these teachings, like giving them a book as a gift, or maybe sending them a link every once in a while to a video that they can start learning some of these teachings, you might do that 2 or 3 times. And then after that, if they choose to learn the teachings, great. And if they don't, they don't. I've done this with my sister before. I see her struggling with all kinds of problems. And the Buddhist teachings are so clear to be able to help with those situations. So I've sent her a link every once in a while, maybe 2 or 3 times over the course of like 2 years. Maybe 2 or 3 times I've sent her something. And as far as I know, she doesn't look at them because I don't hear back from her about those things. But I didn't send it to her because I was expecting her to reply to me. I just sent it to her. And now, since I haven't heard from her about those things, I just don't send her any more links because she's not interested. But then about maybe 2 or 3 years after that, she contacted me one time. She was like, hey, I was at work today and they were talking about Buddhism. And they asked me a couple of questions and I was able to answer it after having read some of your stuff and saw some of your posts online. I was able to help these people with Buddhism. And I was like, oh, I didn't even realize that you read my stuff or that you even paid attention. She was like, yeah. She was like, I've been learning a little bit. I was like, oh, sweet. Excellent. Right. So sometimes you can have people in your life that are practicing these teachings, which can be really nice, but it's not always going to be the case. Sometimes people just aren't going to be interested. And that means that they're just going to continue to struggle. Oftentimes when we have people like life partners or children or things like this, we tend to sleep with those people. And that can be really fun, and that might be something that you do at certain times. But even when you're in a relationship with like a life partner, if you guys can sometimes sleep alone, this is going to really help your mind. Sometimes we feel like if we're sleeping together, we're having a good relationship. And if we're sleeping apart, somehow there's a problem. Somebody's done something wrong and now we need to sleep apart. But if you've ever had a long-term partner where you guys slept together every single day, you know that when one of you guys went on a business trip or something like that, it was really hard to fall asleep perhaps because your mind got attached to sleeping next to this person. So when things are great, you guys can be sleeping together in the same beds. But when things are still great, you can also be sleeping away from each other from time to time. Learn to sleep together, and your mind can be content and peaceful and enjoy that. And learn to sleep apart from each other, and your mind can enjoy that too, and your mind can be just fine. Whereas if you can only sleep and you can only feel good if you're sleeping together, when you guys sleep apart, your mind's going to struggle and have difficulties with that. So even when things are good in your relationship, you can just choose to sleep separately sometimes, and it'll help your mind and it'll help your partner's mind too, so you guys don't grab on and have attachment during those periods of time. No attachment cultivates closeness. Sometimes, I don't know if you guys have been taught this. When I was growing up, I was taught that a family that eats together stays together. So we all had this, exact time. Everybody had to eat dinner at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. and everybody had to come to the kitchen, and we all had to sit down and eat as a family, because the thought was a family that eats together stays together. But sometimes people aren't hungry at 5 p.m. They're not hungry at 6 p.m. They're not interested in eating. And now as kids, we didn't really want to be there, but our parents were kind of forcing us to be there, right? Where what you're going to find is that when you guys don't have this kind of attachment with each other, you'll actually have a lot better relationships. So in our home, people eat whenever they would like to eat. If my son would like to eat the same time as me and we sit down for a meal together, great. If he doesn't, then that's fine too. I just eat whenever I'd like to eat. He eats whenever he eats. His mom eats whenever she eats, and we all are experiencing what we would like to do instead of being forced to eat at a particular time, because we're not all interested in eating at the same time. The way we've arranged our home is we have a sofa right near the eating table. So sometimes, like if my son's eating, for example, I can come sit on the sofa and hang out with them and spend time with them. So how you set up your home and what you do is up to you, but just don't feel like you have to force each other to eat at the same time, because not everybody's going to necessarily be interested in that. Because of impermanence, different people are going to be interested to eat at different times. If there's discontentedness in your mind, that means that there's an attachment somewhere. So if in a relationship you're becoming angry or frustrated or irritated or annoyed, or you're having guilt or shame or fear or stress or anxiety, there's some attachment that's causing it. So you can look in the relationships that you have. If you're experiencing discontentedness, that means you have an attachment. So you can use that attachment, or you can use that discontentedness as an indication for you that you have some attachment in that relationship. So you can eliminate this and your mind will be much more peaceful. Understand that quality of time is better than quantity of time. Sometimes we feel like just spending a lot of time with people is an indication that we're close and we're having a good relationship, but it's really about the quality of the time that you're spending together. So you might not spend a whole lot of time with your children or other people in your life, but look at the quality of the time that you spend together. So that's really helpful. Understand that you're going to need to have patience, because these attachments don't get eliminated by the snap of a finger, particularly like to your parents or to your children or people like this, or to a life partner. I observed my wife and her son. It probably took my wife a good 5 or 6 years to actively eliminate the attachment to her son, where me, it wasn't as much, because I was able to practice and able to let go of that attachment to him a lot easier. And I used to joke with him and I said, thank goodness I didn't have a daughter, because I probably would have been a lot harder to eliminate that attachment to a daughter than to a son. But for me, with my son, it was not as hard as it was for his mom, right? Because this baby was inside of her womb. It was part of her body for a period of time. He was breastfeeding for a period of time. It was a lot more challenging for her to eliminate her attachment to him. So be patient with your attachments and realize that it's going to be gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress that these are going to get eliminated. They're not going to get eliminated overnight. And then lastly, the very last thing to talk about that's going to be like the really helpful way for you to eliminate attachment to the people that are close to you. The Buddha refers to this as contemplation of death or reflection of death. The biggest thing that you could experience in a relationship that's going to trigger an attachment, if you have an attachment, is if somebody dies. If there's somebody close to you who dies, you could experience the triggering of your attachment, where now there's sorrow and there's grief or pain or displeasure. So because that is going to happen at some point, either you or the people close to you are going to die, You can wait for death to come sneak up on you and catch you by surprise. And it almost feels like someone's pulled the carpet out from under your feet or chopped you off at the knees. Instead, you can practice this, which is called reflection on death or contemplation of death. What you do is you go sit somewhere quietly with your eyes closed, and you envision in your mind that this person has died. You're not aspiring for them to die. You're not wanting them to die. You're not planning for them to die. But instead, in your mind, you convince your mind that they've died. Essentially, you kind of envision like maybe the police showing up at your house, or a doctor or a nurse calling you, or somebody informing you that this person has died. And now you play that out in your mind. Maybe you have a funeral to plan. Maybe you have relatives to contact. Maybe you have different material possessions that you need to take care of. You kind of play that out over 10, 15, 20 minutes within your own mind. And now, during that period of time, you might actually grieve. You might actually be sorrowful. You might actually even start crying. And if this is the case, this is your attachment being triggered. But now you train your mind through breathing, mindfulness, meditation, and all the other things to let that go. And now you might need to do that again. You might need to wait like 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month, and then do it again. And then do it again and do it again, and do it all the way to the point where you're not grieving any longer when you envision their death in their mind. Because death is going to come visit you. It's going to come and visit you. It's going to come visit you either by surprise, or you can go see it yourself. You can say, hey, death, I see you over there in the corner. I know you're going to come visit me, but I'm going to come visit you. And now you go visit death and you get comfortable with it. Right? Because sometimes people have a really hard time talking about death. So you can do this for other people, like your parents, your children, your life partner. If you have pets, like the lady that was here earlier that had a pet, you can do it for pets and people like this. You can also do it for your own death as well. Like if you fear death, if you fear the idea of dying, you can contemplate in your own mind that you've actually died. And you can play that out in your own mind. And this is going to help you to get more comfortable with death. Because oftentimes the mind doesn't want to confront it. But you are going to need to confront death at some point. Your death and the death of the people that are close to you. So if you confront it on your own terms, this allows you to do it on your own terms. Rather than allowing death to sneak up on you and catch you by surprise, you can confront death on your terms when you're ready to do it. You can say, hey, I see you over there. I'm going to come visit you. I'm not going to wait for you to come visit me. So this is like the really wonderful way to eliminate attachment to the people that are close to you, is contemplation of death or reflection on death. And you're probably going to need to do it more than one time, because one time just isn't enough. I did this in my early 20s for my mom and my grandmother, because those were the people that I was closest to. And at the end of the reflection of death, I realized that if my grandmother had truly died, there were certain things that I never said to her that I would regret having never said. And there were certain questions that I had for her that I would regret having never asked her, and I wanted to hear certain information from her. So one of the beauties of this practice is that when you're done doing the reflection on death, if you have those kinds of things, you can just pick up the phone and call this person. Whereas if my grandmother had truly died, I wouldn't have been able to do that. I would just be stuck with these questions that were unanswered and these things that I never said to her. So I picked up the phone after I regained my composure, and I called my grandmother and I said, hey, Grandma, I've always been meaning to ask you something here. And I asked her like these 3 or 4 questions, and she answered them for me. And then I said, hey, I've always been meaning to tell you these things. And I said these things to her. And then we had a great conversation. She didn't know what I was doing, but I knew what I was doing, right? And then after that, I felt completely fine. Like I said, I did this for my mom when I was in my early 20s. She died in 2017, and I didn't grieve. I wasn't upset. Of course, I love my mom. We love our mom, but I didn't have attachment to her. So when she died in 2017, from the time that I did this way back in the 1990s and early 2000s, all that other time, 25 years or almost 20 years for her, I felt like it was bonus time, right? Because I'd convinced my mind that she had died, but then there was this extra 20 years or 25 years that I got to spend with her, and it felt like bonus time. So when she actually died in 2017, I was like, yeah, I knew this day was coming. It was going to happen. I already confronted it within my own mind. I knew this was going to occur. So there was no grief. There was no sadness. It was just a simple conversation. My mom called me up on the phone. She said, hey, I've been losing all kinds of weight. I thought I was just eating better and losing weight, but it turns out I have cancer. And my doctor gave me 1 week to live. It looks like I'm going to die in the next 1 week. I have stage 4 pancreatic cancer. I said, oh, Mom, that's unfortunate. Sorry to hear that. She said, yeah, I just thought I would call and say sorry for everything I've ever done. Thank you for everything that you've ever done, blah, 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 blah. We just had a simple conversation. I said, Mom, you did the best you could do. I love you so much. Rest in peace. And she died 4 days later. My sister called me and she said she had died 4 days later. But there was no grief. There was no sadness. There was none of that because I'd already come to terms with my mom is impermanent. She's not going to be here permanently. So again, you can wait for death to come sneak up on you and it's going to catch you by surprise, or you can go visit it and you'll see that death will be a very different experience. Because when I was young, when I was about 16, my very first girlfriend had died. She died when I was 16 years old. She was a little bit older than me, but she ended up dying. It tore me apart. For 2 or 3 years, I was like in a deep sadness, right? And it really, really hurt because I hadn't understood these teachings. I hadn't practiced these teachings. Later in life, in my early 20s, my grandfather died, who was really close to me. It took me about 3 months to get over that death, right? Because he was really close to me, but it was less than with my girlfriend. Then my stepfather died. No grief, no attachment. My mom died, no grief, no attachment. My grandmother is still alive. She's like 101, 102 years old. She's going to die next. There's not going to be any grief, no sadness, right? So you can get to the point where you can experience death very differently. So if you don't have attachment, you won't experience sorrow and grief when people die because you understand they are impermanent and your mind's not holding on. So this contemplation of death or reflection of death is the way to help train your mind to let go by confronting the death, by getting comfortable with the fact that this person dies. And now you live the rest of your life, right? Because oftentimes we feel like, I just can't live without Mom. I don't know what I would do. I just can't live life without Mom. But if you envision that Mom has died and then you live the rest of your life and you keep on going, you can see, no, there's life after death. In terms of when other people die, there is life for you after death. So it doesn't have to be this miserable, horrible experience when people die. You can confront it, train your mind to let go of the attachment so that then when they do die or you're getting close to death, your mind's not holding on. When you hold on and crave permanence, that's when it's going to be painful. Because, as you age, if you have children, you're going to die before them most likely. And it'll be very painful to die and let go if you haven't let go. Or if people like your parents or your siblings are dying, if your mind's holding on, it's going to be very painful. So if you do this, this is what's going to train your mind to let go. And then during your life, you practice all these things that I shared here. All of these different things is what's going to help you to train your mind to let go. So do you guys have any questions on this? Hugo's always got a question. You should just keep a mic with you back there.
Reflecting in death is fascinating. I wonder, reflecting on our own death, is that something that we should contemplate?
Yeah, that's the same thing. This is the way to get over your fear of death. If you have a fear of death, you can envision your own death and play it out in your mind like you're a fly on the wall. So like envision like probably your son or daughter getting contacted by somebody like a police or doctor or something. Envision what's happening in that conversation. You're not planning it. You're just envisioning it. And now envision what happens from that point forward. Maybe there's a funeral, maybe there's a viewing, a burial or a cremation or something like this. And you play that out for 10 or 15 minutes within your own mind. And again, you might grieve, you might be sorrowful. And as that occurs, you're going to need to eventually regain your composure, right? Over the next couple of hours or next couple of days, you're going to need to regain your composure. And when you do, your mind's going to be more peaceful. And then you wait about 2 weeks or a month, and then you do it again. And now you see what's the effect. And what you're going to notice is that your mind's affected less and less each time. And eventually you'd like to do it 1 or 2 times where there's no effect whatsoever. And you can see like, I'm completely peaceful with this idea of dying. And you're not holding on any longer. Because as we talked the other day, it sounds like you are fine with dying, but you would like to do this within your own mind just to be sure and play it out.
It's nothing we can do about it, isn't it?
You're going to die, every single one of us, right? It's going to happen. So we might as well go visit it before it comes to visit us, right? It's kind of like there's this big bully in the corner. It's like you can wait for them to sneak up on you and catch you by surprise, or you can go visit them. Say, hey, I know you're going to come visit me someday, but I would like to just come make friends with you. Before you come visit me and try to be a bully, let's just make friends. So make friends with death. That's essentially what I'm teaching you.
Someone mentioned in India to me that it's like a big elephant coming back to you and humping behind you. Then if you turn around and say, hey, I'm ready for you. Yeah.
What a lot of people try to do is they try to avoid the elephant, right? They try not to look at the elephant. They try to pretend like the elephant's not there. And this is what's going to catch you by surprise. But instead, go make friends with the elephant, right? The elephant's fine. It's not going to hurt you. Okay, this life is over. Okay. It's just time to go on, right? So, you can get comfortable with death. It doesn't have to be a dramatic experience.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Okay, let's see. I see all you guys online. Welcome to everyone. Okay, I don't see any questions online anywhere. So what I'll do then is just end here. It's basically the end of our class, about 3 o'clock. Thank you guys for being interested to learn. Thank you for asking questions and being interested to learn the teachings of the Buddha. Tomorrow, we're going to start off at 9 a.m. in the morning, where I'm going to start with loving kindness meditation like we've been doing each morning. Then I'm going to move into topics for tomorrow. I'll show you guys what those are. The first one is sharing the path to enlightenment, how to guide children along the path. If you have children, this will help you. But also, even if you don't have children, like say you're never even interested in having children. If you have friends or family members that you're interested in maybe kind of helping along the path, this talk will actually help you in those situations, even with coworkers and neighbors and things like that. So we're going to spend the entire morning talking about that. Then in the afternoon, I'm going to teach you how to develop and maintain relationships, choosing wholesome friends and a life partner, because based on who we choose to involve in our life, we're going to experience certain things. If we choose wisely who to involve in our life, we will experience more and more wholesome results. But if we choose unwisely who to involve in our life, we can be influenced in an unwholesome direction. So it's helpful to be able to choose friends and a life partner, but you would like to do this without judgment. You're not looking down on people and judging people, but you would like to use discernment or wise decision making. So I'm going to teach you how to do that in the afternoon. And of course, we'll meditate in the afternoon as well. So again, thank you guys, and perhaps we'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Whatever you choose to do, have a wonderful rest of your day. Okay? Sawadee Kap. Sawadee Kap.